Civil War. As the battles rage for North Carolina, the grisly toll mounts. 1 in 4 men of military age will die in the war. Yet for all its sacrifice of blood and treasure, the Old North State struggle is as much a story of privation, division, dispossession, and transformation. The Civil War, writ large, was a scar across the entire nation. In many ways, the conflict in North Carolina was a reflection of the country's wounds. It was the eruption of long simmering regional rivalries, economic and political factions spinning out of control, and ultimately, the inevitable consequence of the clash between institutional oppression and the basic rights of mankind. To see the war as it was lived and fought in North Carolina is to understand its meaning and its impact on all of America in a new way, more intense and more personal. In many respects, the struggle within North Carolina reflects the struggle of the nation as a whole. By telling our state's story of division, devastation, and redemption, the new North Carolina Civil War History Center plans to bring a rarely heard perspective to the war. This is the first Civil War museum in the nation to focus on the impact of the war and its aftermath on a single state, not just from a military perspective, but more important, on the lives of its people. The fight in North Carolina was a war within a war, a bloody battle for control of the soul of the state. Among states of the Confederacy, North Carolina mirrored the fractured nation at war with itself. Slave versus free, plantation owners versus hardtack subsistence farmers, fierce Confederates and strong Unionists, as well as mountaineers whose allegiances changed with the wind, and Quakers whose fight was against war itself. These are the stories embodied in the North Carolina Civil War History Center. The stories of soldiers caught in the horrors of battle, and the struggles of those left behind, women and children and the very old, who faced privation and brutality at home. The stories of emancipated slaves and free people of color. The stories of scoundrels and saints who descended on the state during Reconstruction. And the story of modern North Carolina that was born out of and shaped by the conflict. Civil War museums across the country usually evoke images of great battles, Gettysburg, Antietam, Manassas. North Carolina's battlefields are less iconic, but no less decisive. The battles of Cape Hatteras, Roanoke Island, Elizabeth City, New Bern in the early years, and later, Fort Fisher, Stoneman's Raid, and ultimately the bloodiest battle of them all in Bentonville, which led to the last and largest surrender of the war, fully 2 weeks after Appomattox. All are part of North Carolina's strategic place in Civil War history. The North Carolina Civil War History Center will feature multimedia presentations, exhibit experiences, and displays of artifacts depicting the Old North State's role on the battlefield and on the home front. Especially poignant, the history of North Carolina in the Civil War is the story of its people. In all, the state supplied 1/4 of the men conscripted into the Confederate Army. Fully 1 in 4 of the casualties at Gettysburg hailed from the Old North State. On the home front, devastation led to starvation and bread riots. By late in the war, nearly half of North Carolinians were dependent on government-issued foodstuffs. The fall of Fort Fisher opened the way for General William T. Sherman, famous for his March to the Sea, to strike out on his final march with his 62,000 troops toward the strategic rail junction and resupply depot at Goldsboro. Upon entering the state, Sherman's primary objective was to destroy the Fayetteville Arsenal, one of the Confederates' largest remaining weapons and munitions factories. Employing upwards of 2,000 men, women, and children at its height, the arsenal was the last remaining asset of its kind in the Confederacy. Of the arsenal, Sherman said, "I will destroy it utterly." instructing 1,000 troops from his Corps of Engineers to do precisely that over a 3-day period in early March of 1865. Today, the ruins of the old arsenal, located on the Interstate 95 corridor, are truly the gateway to many of North Carolina's most important Civil War sites. It includes the remains of the arsenal, the 4-acre Arsenal Park, the 1897 E.A. Poe House, plus additional features of historical significance. Here, plans call for the construction of a 60,000-square-foot History Center complex, incorporating permanent exhibits that cover antebellum history, the war in North Carolina leading up to the last weeks of the conflict, Sherman's final march, and an extensive look at the Reconstruction era and the war's impact on the social and economic fabric of modern North Carolina. Additional galleries will be available for temporary displays and traveling exhibits. The large auditorium, with state-of-the-art audio-visual equipment, will be available for instructional and community events. The center will also house facilities for classrooms, archives, and preservation of non-public collections. Outside, the historic sense of the site will come to life, with the arsenal remains, the ghost tower, the Poe home, and other historic houses preserved and open to the public. On completion, the History Center and Arsenal Park are projected to welcome as many as 100,000 visitors a year from North Carolina, the I-95 corridor, and across the nation. Beyond the confines of the History Center, however, a much larger plan is taking shape to bring the North Carolina Civil War experience to homes and classrooms across the state. Significant resources will be dedicated to develop the virtual museum experience and a history foundry, a digital meeting place that will create a statewide resource for study, understanding, and ideas through augmented technology and outreach. Tens of thousands of students throughout North Carolina will be able to participate in real-time, interactive history without ever leaving their classrooms. More than a museum, the center is designed to be truly a 21st century history experience. Before the Civil War, North Carolina was a state divided by geography, race, class, culture, religion, and politics. Fully a third of its people were enslaved. The end of the war found the state devastated, with the economic base and social order turned upside down. In the 150 years since, much has been written and spoken about the war's impact on North Carolina. Battles are recreated, social changes are studied, history is debated. But nowhere is the comprehensive story of the Civil War in North Carolina told. Not just battles and artifacts, but consequences for real people, those who lived through the struggle, and those of us who have come after, not to resurrect the past, but to learn from it and grow into the future. The Civil War in North Carolina. It's a vital story, full of heartbreak, hope, and deep meaning. Today, with your support, we can create a home for this story in the North Carolina Civil War History Center. We invite you to help us bring history to life through this unique center, that future generations can understand the powerful lessons born of this conflict. Lessons of the struggle for freedom, for reconciliation and renewal that have shaped our state today. Visit NCCWHC.com to find out more about your role in this groundbreaking, historic movement.